Greetings, dear ones. This is March 14th, and it's about 11 minutes after the hour. And I do apologize as it has been a rather disconcerting morning. If anybody is there, can you please tell me whether you hear me? I'm actually on Zoom through to Facebook so that there is a bit more freedom, let's put it that way. Um, and that in future people can join me on Zoom and actually comment even more, have interaction so that I can do personal reads for people or some quick energetic updates if that's needed, because we're all in it right now. Totally. So, if anybody's there, does anybody hear me? I'm not sure whether Zoom is actually the microphone that is able to be transmitted, or that Facebook is picking it up. I apologize, and I do hope that people can hear this on Facebook. So we have, as usual, a lot going on in our country, a lot going on in the world, a lot going on in the cosmos, a lot going on in the earth, a lot going on in our bodies. And more than anything, so much going on in our psycho-emotional and spiritual bodies and world individually. So I want to address a couple things. First, the reason for my tardiness this morning was in while preparing for today's talk and energetic deep dive. Um, I was unfortunately perusing, checking in with friends, and looking at some of the regular posts that I use as touchstones for my work, my world. And I was purposely and in a very strange way completely blocked from moving in any direction with Facebook. I tried to make a comment on someone else's post that was not permitted. And then on top of that, it said that that information was not available. Later, I was able to go back. So I'm not sure. There was just a series of things that are not new, but it was a conglomeration of them that was was more disconcerting than normal. I have been, as I posted a few days ago, many years ago, I was not as much concerned about world leaders and other countries causing world disruption or world war as much as through the technology and cyber world. And cybersecurity, technology, wars, let's put it, and the invasion of privacy and the ability to manipulate through technology and the cyber world has always been, for me, and what my people have told me, my guides have told me for many years, is the most danger. So I've been watching over quite some time, the past year, maybe a little longer. There have been ships in the Baltic Sea that have drug their anchors behind them and ripped up communication lines that connect different countries in Europe and other to other countries in other on the other continent. Um, and this is, we're very familiar at this point with the level of influence, misinformation, etc. So I just caution you to be very, very careful in regard to, and let me preface that by saying that those who know me and have worked with me, I do not subscribe to any sort of conspiracy theories and what they are doing, etc. Um, it's been my practice, both personally and in working with people, to discover the facts. In that, my work is much like all of the mystery writers and investigators, private investigators, shows that I've led for many, many years, books and shows. Initially, of course, with Sherlock Holmes. And that is truly investigating, finding the facts. So if you see posts, they are from either known journalistic sources or someone has sourced from several of them. And I don't just put up gossip, and I don't just talk about conspiracy ideas, because that keeps us imprisoned. It keeps us from knowing who we are, both personally and collectively. And this was very, it's very apparent with clients as well with our collective consciousness theme this week, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes. But backing up, facts are really important. This is why when I'm working with clients one on one, the entire process is being able to move past all of the insanely clever, fast, effective processes of the defense system, which is whose purpose, our individual defense system's purpose, is to actually keep us from getting to the truth that our innate, which is our direct line of communication to our soul, our internal wise one, the divine within. It's about 3 finger widths below your diaphragm or your xiphoid bone, which is that bone, that round bone where the ribs come together. And if you actually lay 3 fingers down and kind of poke in it, it may be very tender, particularly at this point in time, because what our internal knowledge is, what our souls are telling us, is very much in contrary to what we are experiencing, what we are seeing out in the world. And when we're young, that is exactly the dynamic that happens. Our instinctual, primal, it's not primal, sorry, instinctual, intuitive, innate line of communication from our souls, which when we're very little, it does not run through our brain. This is very physical, it is very energetic, it is on a much deeper level. And that part of us comes in with a set of parameters or a knowing of what life should be, how this human system should work from when you're a tiny baby. And so those automatic, natural expectations are there. And when that isn't the response coming towards that child, i.e., the parents, their environment is not responding the way it would, should, could, according to their internal system, then that information clashes. And if the child continues to hear from deep inside, this does not feel good, this is not right, this is not the way it's supposed to be, you of all people are not supposed to be treating me this way, you are not supposed to be doing this to me, you are not supposed to be speaking to me this way, you are not supposed to not respond to me in multiple ways, whether it's physical, emotional, energetic, spiritual. And I'm talking about very tiny on up. Once the brain begins to engage 6, 7, 8, then it's adjusted a little bit differently. But prior to that, your innate is, and your natural body energy system is wanting and needing and expecting certain things to happen. Just like when you're hungry, you expect a bottle, you expect food. And those same psycho-emotional expectations and needs and wants are there. So we have your internal voice telling you, I'm needing this, this is what should come in. Again, remember, this is not going through the thinking mind. This is purely and completely innate and natural. And then that is not happening in your outer world. The parent is not responding, not giving, not doing, not providing. On the contrary, can most often is scaring the child by not being what they're supposed to be. So if that happens again and again and again, which it does over and over and over again, because parents do not tune in and clue into what is really going on inside of a child, that takes a great deal of effort and purposeful intent to pick up those clues and little tiny pieces of information and figure out what's going on, much like you would with a pet or, even the information that comes from guidance. It's not always nice, clear English sentences. It's a little bit here, a little bit there. And then you, because of your um, library of references, you put that together. That's why I think I mentioned in another um, talk recently that one of my passions, or maybe a post, one of my passions has always been dream interpretation. And yes, I can interpret, but once you really start working with your dreams, it is important that you have significance of what a certain object or scene or action means to you personally. And that's what we do in sessions, is while we're trying to get past that defense system, we are then allowing your body, your energy field, your emotional body, your wider self, which is your soul self, your guides and teachers and masters, all to help bring these little clues and bites of information to the fore so that you can see what is real for you. Because this is your own body speaking, this is your own energy field speaking, and this is coming from inside of you. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm working with someone. It comes to be their facts. They prove to themselves whether something is true or not in the statements or the piece that we're working with. Because I can read people all day long and do and love it. However, that really doesn't serve, or it doesn't ultimately make the deep changes that need to be made. It is only when you feel your system, your whole body, energy field, emotional, mental system responding or indicating, speaking to you, that's when you know it's true. And as we transmute these untruths that are created by your defense system in order to protect you from feeling that truth. Because just imagine a little child is expecting their parent to speak to them in a certain way, or to validate them or mirror them or encourage them, and that doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen again and again and again and again. Now your innate, your internal system is saying, that's supposed to happen. And again, remember, this is not a thought process. It's like a hunger. It is that natural and that strong a need. And when that doesn't, it isn't what's coming back, then your defense system comes in, starts building to adjust that information so that you don't have to receive that hit, so to speak, again and again and again. Now, your internal wisdom, this inner voice, is always going to speak the truth. But when what you are experiencing is painful, infuriating, terrifying, and achingly grief ridden, there has to be some way for you to not to be able to tolerate that for years and years to come, because the actions and the words or the inactions keep happening. So we actually shut up, shut down, just cover over, doubt, do not trust our own inner voice. And we believe we have to buy into what the distorted perspective is created by the defense system and what our parents are saying, doing. We have to buy into the fact that that's really ultimately good for us, that they really do want the best for us, and they really do care, and they really do get it, even though our internal voice is saying, yeah, that's not right. So we could not live with this constant clash. So the easiest way is to disconnect from this, buy into the misinformation, buy into the mistaken beliefs and lies. Now, that isn't to say that all parents are evil and horrible and abusive, but when you really work with the child that is in and as all of us, you come to realize how exquisitely sensitive, how absolutely raw and open and susceptible that child is. And it can take very tiny things, but when those apparently tiny things happen again and again and again, it creates very, very deep wounding. Now, take that same framework and bring it to a national stage. And we have people across the board buying into misinformation, disinformation, lies, and even, just, oh, well, it's not exactly that way. We compromise ourselves. We choose to not listen to this internal voice and feel into what is right and wrong. We tend to try to use our brain and our will to maneuver in the world. And unfortunately, the defense system functions through the brain. So that isn't a reliable source of information, frankly. And as a result, that needing and wanting and longing that forever stays. It does not go away. And the aching to believe that these people are going to change, they are going to do what they're supposed to do, that they really do care and they really do get me and they really are doing these things for my benefit, even though some of those things are excruciatingly painful and in some instances horrific. And it's very, very, very difficult to undo that deep hope and wishing and belief that the one in authority, the one in power, whether it's a parent, whether it's a boss, whether it is a society, whether it is an authority figure, whether it is government leaders, religious leaders, it becomes very, very difficult to see through the lies or to um, accept the fact that the lies, misinformation, and in fact, that person is using them, abusing them, taking from them, taking advantage of them, taking them for granted. And we are seeing that on a daily basis in our country right now. And if you were an observer of history or an observer of other countries around the world, you can watch that occurring, or you can have watched it occur over and over and over again, where whether it's communists, whatever the title or name of the project is, people believing that you're sacrificing, that your pain and your doing without is for the benefit of all and the greater good, when in fact it was to benefit a few. And then, of course, it became too late in many of these countries. There is now authoritarian leaders, autocrats, tyrants, even, and the people have actually no power and they do not have freedom. So it's on a large scale and on this individual scale. And it's never been more vital than now to go in and explore deeply those patterns within you and transform them or transmute them, which is the work that I do with clients one-on-one. It's transformation changes your thoughts about it and changes your behavior, but that does not actually change the pattern within. It doesn't become something different, which is what transmutation is. And those clients that continue in this process and go even deeper, they are transfiguring themselves. They are transfiguring these patterns. They are transfiguring their lineage piece that is connected to that or reflected in it. They are transfiguring their culture, whether it's the current culture they live in or that of their heritage. And then ultimately, when the process goes even deeper, then there is genetic change and it is being evolved out of human nature, out of our species. And I'm talking about, very primal, very low level base, first and second chakra, psycho-emotional and psycho-spiritual aspects. So I'm saying that to give a background of what you may be experiencing at this point in time. The current collective consciousness theme this week or so has a great deal to do with buying into what someone is telling you, even though it doesn't feel good, even though it doesn't feel right. But your emotional body and your little internal being continues to stay with this person, continues to put themselves in that situation of being hurt or abused or taken advantage of or taken for granted. Because that overrides any rational, intellectual, cognitive awareness you may have. It literally drives you. And as several clients this week, but one that's bouncing, into my mind at this moment, or did actually in preparation for today, was someone who received just this very diminishing, devaluing, disrespectful, verbally abusive, among many other things, treatment when she was a child. And she has become involved with a man over the years that continues to do so to her. And she's, saying she can even see that. She acknowledges it because she's done a great deal of work on herself, excuse me, in other ways prior to working with me. And yet she just feels pulled over and over and over again. And these are these very deep, embedded, they're not embedded, very deep, innate, instinctive, natural yearnings, wantings, needings, expectings of a child. And so, since that distorted representation of um, what is expected, i.e., in the parent is not responding the way they want and need and expect. And again, remember, these are not little wants and needs. These are not, oh, I want some candy. Why aren't you giving it to me? This is, I am confused and I'm scared. And why aren't you making me safe? Why aren't you taking the steps to protect me from whatever may be going on? And so this want and this need and this longing continues, but we will seek out the same energetic forms that we know. So we continue to go towards those energetic forms, patterned, in the way a person's energetic formation is. So you're attracted to that person. You're now still continuing to expect and need and want certain things from that person. And that person is responding in the same way that you experienced as a child. This is a completely different person. Remember, this is a boyfriend, a spouse, boss, um, friend, uh, leader, etc., religious leader, political leader, etc. And because you are seeking it from that same type of person, that same pattern, it is not going to come. But what is going to happen is it is going to catalyze and it is going to trigger your system in such a way that it continues to seek out a means, a method, a way, a teacher, something that will enable you to get a little bit deeper or a lot deeper in the case of the work that I do, to be able to truly change that. And the what happens then is that automatically that innate, your internal voice, this deep divine wisdom of you comes back online. And then you are learning once again to follow that truth as the only truth, because your internal voice is the only truth. The problem or the challenge is actually getting to the point where this is clear and true, and you are not being fooled by your brain or even your heart. The heart can very easily, has been fooled all of your life. So determine something from your heart is, again, not the greatest resource, but your innate, your direct soul, your wider you, is always going to steer you in the right direction. It is always going to guide you well. It is always going to bring you to your utmost and best, whether it's an opportunity, whether it's food, whether it's actions that you can take. It will never, ever, ever lie to you. but we so often shut it down because it is in contrary to what we're experiencing. And again, we're seeing that on the larger stage, that it's very, very difficult to believe that anyone as a leader in our government, or certainly in a religion, would want to harm us, would want to take advantage of us, would want to abuse us, would want to dominate us, would want to take away from us. And yet that is what is occurring. And it is occurring to trigger and catalyze these pieces within us. That is the evolutionary process. That is the entire game, if you will, of this particular planet. We design where we're born, who we're born to, and it is in agreement that they will behave in a certain way to give us the opportunity to have that wounding, to ultimately follow it to the depth of our capacity to transmute it. And again, there are very, very large souls on this planet right now, those who are on a mastery project course that are here to change it all the way down to a genetic level and evolve human nature so that we can move into this next level of technological, scientific, engineering, space capacity that we have, and that is apparent every day through discoveries in all ways. But we cannot have that power and that ability and be so primitive. I liken it oftentimes, you cannot take a 6-year-old child and put them into a semi truck and expect them to be able to drive it either physically, mentally, emotionally, or energetically. It's not possible. So we must mature as a species in order to utilize that knowledge and that technology and those abilities without causing harm to ourselves or others. So you may see a lot of posts on my Facebook or Instagram or what have you, and it may seem like I'm speaking about politics, but it is not. It's not politics, it's evolution. And when we're speaking about your own childhood experiences and working to transmute those, it is not about just getting over childhood trauma. It is not simply about getting a handle on it or being able to manage the experiences that you went through. Those are specifically designed by you, by your soul, to have a soul purpose. In ultimately, when they are transmuted, you are incorporating and living from that higher soul place. So in this particular instance, I had another client this week that she just absolutely, and is very aware of her resistance to acknowledge that her mother, for example, treated her in a certain kind of way when she was a child and continues to treat her that way. And that her yearning and longing and wanting and needing of her mother, in this case, there's a financial hook in there. Or let me say that as an adult, the finances are being used to perpetuate this pattern so that it allows for my client to keep hoping and wanting and expecting her mother to do and be and say what she would love her to, what she would want her to, what the little one inside needs and expects her to. And, so often people say, oh, I had a great childhood, my parents were great. And that doesn't mean that they didn't love you, but there are actions and choices and responses that parents make that are extremely, extremely harmful to a child. And they don't just make it once, because if it was a one off, it wouldn't do the damage that it does. But it's over and over and over and over again. And as a result, this is it distorts a person's child and then growing up person's perspective of who they are and how the world works in relation to them. So her reluctance to and she knows it because she feels it, she sees it, but will not, up until now, she just started working with me recently, up until now would not allow the fact that her mother does use her, does take advantage of her, does take her for granted, does even get some energetic uh, nutrition, let's say, from being able to have this verbal and emotional back and forth with my client. And as a result, my client has stayed in a particular small way that she knows she's big. She has an immense capacity for her work, her career, etc. Insanely creative, and is, able to wanting to share that with other people. But because of this needing and wanting and expecting that has been running through her whole life, she would rather harm herself and keep herself from becoming who she is in the hopes that her mother will be and do and give her what she's always longed for. And please understand, this is not conscious. This is not something, although there is an awareness, generally, there's a little bit of awareness, but this is coming from a deeper place within. So, people begin to feel guilty or feel wrong if they, go into these depths of feeling. And when the process that, has been created over 40 years, the process that I do with clients, that you come to have that piece of you that got shut away or disconnected or um, pushed aside, packed down somewhere in your body. So you reclaim or reconnect with that piece of yourself humanly. But what moreover, for example, in this particular instance, once and as she is able to transmute these pieces, or even this one major piece in regard to her mother, it allows her to actually feel within herself, give to herself that which she has longed for. And now she's going to be able to give it to herself in an adult way rather than the child in constant need. So she can recognize her magnificence. She can delight and celebrate her own gifts and abilities and creativity and ideas. She can be free to, well, it's not only being free, she then has such a high value and esteem for herself that it doesn't matter what anybody else says. It doesn't matter whether her mother does, continues to use sarcasm to cut her down. It doesn't matter. She's no longer affected by that. It is, I often say, much like water rolling off a duck's back. So that comes humanly. And then on the other end of that is the soul purpose allows for her to receive from aspects of nature, from her guides, if you will, or others, this recognition and acknowledgement. Not that she needs that, but it's coming in and she's knowing it and she's meeting it and she's believing it and she's living from that. And then more creativity and more energy. And she's coming out and being more of who she is and living the life that she wants to and doing the work that she wants to and being financially compensated because it's an automatic. And that desire, that need for her to receive some sort of acknowledgement, recognition, celebration, pride, praise from her mother is no longer necessary because she is feeling that towards herself. She is receiving that from the world around her, whether it's humans or even the non-physical nature. She walks outside. There's, the birds are basically, can be interpreted as saying, "Yay, yippee, that was a great thing you did this morning," even if it wasn't anything major in the world. You are responded to. So again, that's on a different level entirely. And that's part of that soul purpose for it being there. And again, ultimately within that, more importantly, is that she is listening to herself. She is the one that is sourcing from herself and nourishing herself. And then, therefore, she's able to determine what is true and what is not true out in the world. And moreover, that actually, it breaks down the misinformation, disinformation, and lies in the world because she's walking in truth. She's walking aligned with that truth. She's walking listening to that truth and knows that that inner truth is the only truth. So what's happening on a cyber level and what's been happening, and everybody's very aware of it, the purposeful disinformation, disseminated misinformation, elimination of information, which is what I experienced this morning, this interference, this attempt to shut down our voices, which is going to be more and more. We're seeing that out again in the world with the arrest of the student who was protesting. That's just one. There are many different actions taking place in our government that is eliminating oversight. It is eliminating the access to information we have. There are a complete elimination of safeguards to protect the information that's already there. Paperwork, etc., is being trashed. It's I really, really, really invite you to look. It's very, very hard. I understand that there's wide ranges of sources, and I try to bring to the fore some of the things that are going on. And I'm not the only source. There are many, but please do get involved. Please do find out for yourself. There are not only resources and sources, but there are groups. There is Mobilize. There is 50501. There are people who are gathering together in town halls, or even in their communities and discussing and bringing information. One person can't do this. So, my dream a few weeks ago was that in the smaller communities, one person is monitoring what's going on with the education system, another person is monitoring what's going on with Social Security, another person is monitoring what's going on with the ability to add the Freedom of Information Act and accessing public records, the information regarding disability insurance. Another one is taking charge of what's going on with food and the protections of our water and air. If we, this is the whole point of everything that's going on, is to recreate community, to recreate our ability to choose, our ability to not buy into what someone says, but instead to design and create the world we want to live in, from the most basic level, your township, your city, all the way up to the federal government and a world committee or whatever it becomes. Because we are the ones that design this world physically by doing what I just mentioned, being involved in everything that goes on in our immediate communities, our county, our state, then up to the federal, and really taking charge. Again, it's not even taking charge, it's really rediscovering and coming to a maturity within, so that we are not swayed by outer circumstances. We are not victims of what goes on in our company. Should we get fired, then, or let go, or what have you, that there isn't that level of fear because we have this trust within. And ultimately, that leads to the trust in your divine self, which ultimately leads to a trust in the greater design, the divine, universal intelligence, whatever you want to call it, not as something that is going to fix things, but instead in this awareness that there is a oneness. And then, therefore, within that, you are an individuation of that oneness, and that you and the collective individuations, whether in human form or not, are able to decide how we want this world, how we want this galaxy, how we want this universe. We are that powerful. We are that free. We have that choice. So I know that's a lot, and a lot of words today. And let me just check. I think we still have a little bit of time to do some energetics. And I just want to acknowledge also, we had a fabulous and powerful full blood moon last night and a lunar eclipse. So many of you may be feeling, and people feel the energy of an eclipse, whether it's lunar or solar. Solar may be a little bit more strongly. This a lunar eclipse is more subtle. Um, and you may be feeling it, though, very physically, by being zoned out, by being sleepy, fatigued, um, not being motivated, being discouraged. Also, I have been desperately thirsty, and I know that many people have been experiencing that need for hydration. Also, you can be very, very hungry or have no appetite whatsoever. It can show up in many ways. Headaches, digestive troubles. Now, it just so happens that all of those potential symptoms can also be a result of what's going on. The eclipse actually, it can exacerbate them. Now, as far as energetically, you may feel very disconnected. You may feel very, you can feel very, very emotional. Your energy field can actually feel very wonky if you know and are familiar with your regular kind of patterning for an energy field and where you go to earth or to resource from. Um, and that may not feel right or correct right now. So again, this is another major um, resource is your innate on these occasions to follow what you're being indicated to do. And again, as I said, if you haven't worked through some of these patterns and wounds and etc., it can be very difficult to determine what that is saying. So the best you can, feel into your body, feel into your energy field, feel into this internal voice, and it will tell you when to eat, what to eat, when to take a nap, when to just lay down on the ground, whether it's, in your home, or whether it's throw a blanket down on the ground outside. It still may be too cold for many people. Um, or take a walk, or do a little digging in your yard or in your window box. Doesn't have to be, but handling soil oftentimes will allow for not only a stabilization of your body, but also to interact with minerals and ores and metals that actually feed certain aspects of your energy field. So please listen. There's a wide variety of things to know from that internal source. Also, very prominently, it was very interesting. I've never experienced anything like this the other night, like what occurred the other night. I was on my way home and in my neighborhood already, coming back from a beautiful event, and a black cat, very small black cat, ran across in front of my car. And that was very surprising. Not that I don't see cats occasionally, but I haven't seen a black cat in a long time. Immediately thereafter, within 10 feet, a rabbit ran across the road in front of my car from right to left again. And then I got home and parked, and there is a small herd of deer in my yard. Now, again, remember I was saying earlier that you go through your own resources for information from that. But I do have a tendency to align with a lot of Native American, other indigenous, and ancient culture um, symbolism. And while I don't align with a black cat crossing your path as bad luck, for me, when I sat with and asked my internal voice and my helpers, what was being indicated was that although, there is darkness, to not fear that, because rabbits are very, in most cultures, have to do with fear. And yet he seemed absolutely fearless to run in front of a car. So this, to not fear the darkness across, that's in front of you, that's coming in your world, that's crossing your path. And ultimately, that herd of deer that work so closely together and whose gentleness and softness can actually melt away even the most hardened heart. So it was a beautiful message, and I've shared that with quite a few people and have held that all week, and it's still here within our energetics today. Another beautiful being that I haven't seen in a long time were the crows came in. Crows came in this morning, and crows are about law, spiritual law. And we are seeing a lot of laws being run over, disrespected, devalued, diminished, um, much like some of the treatment that I was speaking about earlier from a parent to a child or friend, spouse, boss, etc., towards you. So it is really, really important. Laws have evolved over time, and as you well know, when you're a child, you need lots of kind of, parameters, call them rules, call them, um, even restrictions. I liken it to a little colt who originally just has the area of his stall with his mother, and that's the entirety of his world. Then he is allowed out into a larger corral, again, with his mother very, very close by. And so these surroundings create security. And so too does structuring or rules, let's say, reasonable, create safety and security for a child. But as you get older, you do not need those outer rules, those outer regulations, because you come to a level of maturity where you know that it benefits you to follow certain guidelines, to do the right thing, because not because you're going to get punished otherwise, but because that's what feels good. And my clients well know that as they keep developing and evolving into who they are and become more and more conscious, it just becomes impossible to do wrong, let's say, to break a law or to break a rule set out by whatever, society or the group that you're within, the community, etc., because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't sit right in you. So our laws are in the process of evolving also. Unfortunately, this draconian elimination of laws is not the most ideal or easiest way to move into a new way of law. But we must have voted for this on some level because we're in it right now. So as we all become more conscious, the outer laws and rules don't have to be there. We're evolving that as well. So crows are here in, again, our container today to assist with that evolution of laws through the evolution of our consciousness. Yes, as usual, it's a lot. Anyone who is viewing, anyone who is joining me on Facebook or otherwise, if you have noticed any helpers or any particular energetics or would like to comment in any way, please do so. I'm not sure if through this format I can see what you're commenting, but perhaps so. And of course, any questions. This is why I'm going to be moving this more to Zoom and later post it on Facebook or another platform so that we can have more back and forth. So, last thing I wanted to mention was one of, occasionally I pull oracle cards from different decks. I probably have 40 or more, 50 different decks. And this morning, the message was protecting treasure. And it said, just in the heading, you are always protected and divinely directed. And that although this is a time of great risk, know that at a fundamental level, you are able to move forward safely and securely. So that's in our container as well today. Let me just grab the card and show you right quick because it's very pretty. And I'm hoping that the camera will show this. Let's see if I can get it in the camera well to see that. And there's a beautiful treasure there. And it is about protecting that treasure. And then, of course, she is protected by that umbrella. And so I'm going to ask just for a couple of oils because that was a lot of information. And even though these oils aren't going on you physically, energetically, they are still going into your system and you are receiving the benefit of their wisdom and their gifts and their grace. And this oil has come up several times this week, and it is lemongrass. These are Young Living therapeutic grade pure oils that I've been using for over 25 years. And this would actually be going right on that innate. And this is about as you really feel into the lightness and the magic of your innate, it will enable you. This is Christmas Spirit, a blend. This will enable you to sit in the wonder and magic and excitement and receive that wonder and magic and excitement as your truth. Enabling you to walk in sacred joy. This is sacred frankincense, the only frankincense that is actually from the trees in Oman. This is another oil blend that is going on, that would be going on your heart if you were here in front of me or with me. And this is about that cozy, warm, wonderful feeling as you're like cuddled next to a fire on a cold winter night and the warm cup of something and just feeling that enwrapment and cozy comfort. So that's in our container here as well. So now if you'd like to just find your seat, and ideally if you can wiggle around and find those sits bones, that would be great. And allowing your shoulders to roll back, which kind of brings your shoulder blades together a little bit, not forcefully so, but just automatically, which brings your spine in alignment and will allow for much more flow of energy through you. And some of you may be already picking up the energetics that are coming in or that you're sitting in because you're in the container. And I'm really feeling everyone's, whether you're listening now or at a later point, your anchor point and actually your axis, which you may feel kind of moving, spinning, turning in some kind of way. And if you don't feel anything, that is perfectly fine as well. But this is an opportunity for when the sacred geometrics are created. They are already being developed over days for whoever may be here, and to benefit anyone listening and feeling into this deep dive into all that has been spoken about, how those particular patterns show up in your world, how you may have been catalyzed this week, giving you the opportunity to explore discover, transmute, or at least transform some piece of some aspect of it. And just breathe without doing anything to that breath, just allowing it to move however it is moving in you. And if you feel to, at some point, deepen your breath and extend your exhale. Quite a bit longer than the inhale. And when you do so, this is vagal breathing, so it activates the vagus nerve, allowing for a deep relaxation very, very quickly. Few breaths is all it takes, so you can remember to do that throughout your day when you feel agitated, upset, anxious. It's a pretty rapid process. And again, just allowing yourself to feel whatever there is to feel, whether it's physically, energetically, emotionally, even spiritually. And you may be noticing a kind of downward movement in your energy, which is wonderful. And again, if you do not feel it, no worries. Do not feel obligated or required. This is very likely your energy field wanting to come down and in your body, which is wonderful, allowing more of you to be in you as you. And again, that help from these beautiful oils, this lightness of being, this very nature magic that you will experience by following your innate. Allowing for you to take in and realize the truth of you is that childlike wonder and magic and expectation as a child has of Christmas. Anchoring you deeply into the sacred joy of being alive at this point in time and an extremely significant, important, vital piece of this grand puzzle. For do not ever doubt that you are a great and old soul to be here at this point in time in this process of evolution. You have done a great deal of exploration, widening of your soul in order to be here at this time. Honor, give gratitude, and recognize and acknowledge and celebrate and feel the great deep pride in who you are as a soul. To purposefully choose to be part of this evolutionary process of an entire species and more. For what is playing out on the earth is directly in conjunction with what is going on in the larger galaxy and its evolution, which directly coincides with and is affected or affecting rather the universal evolution. Yes, you are all that and more. Praise, pride in your soul choice. For these are the results, the ultimate result of those patterns mentioned earlier. Just allow, no work, no effort, no do, no goal, no intention. Those all come from a place of mind and will. Allow your system, your energy field, your wider self to bring you down ever more deeply within you. They know how to do this without any effort on your part, thereby enabling you potentially to actually feel energetically, physically, spiritually, your true self. The beautiful, powerful energetics that are here, moving through, around, within, under, behind. That ultimately may feel like that warm, cozy, comforting, and that warm, cozy by a fire on a cold winter night, wrapped up in your favorite wrap or blanket with a warm cup of your favorite, maybe a sweet animal friend curled up beside you. This and more is being transmitted into your system, into your field to remind you on a very deep molecular, atomic level that ultimately that is exactly where your deep soul self sits. Again, just allowing no work, no effort, but feel all there is to feel in you as you, right here, right now. And if you're almost in a sleep state or feel nothing, that is perfectly in line with what is right for you. And one more deep drink of these energetics, to all the many helpers here. Yours, everyone else's that participates, feels into the talk, the deep dive, all is blended in an incomprehensibly beautiful, complex, alchemical soup. enabling you to receive the exact right energetics for you, your system at this point in time. Mm. Continuing to follow your system, your way, your pace, your rhythm, your timing, to feel to stay in these energetics for however long you are perfectly welcome to, knowing that you will be perfectly embodied and they will be perfectly incorporated according to your needs, your system. Whenever you do decide to come back to this more consensus reality, and if you choose to do so at this point in time, again, truly honor and allow your way, not simply because someone has taught you a way, but feeling and following your system. And as always, it is with the deepest of honor, gratitude, and love for your presence here on this planet at this time. Until we meet again, be well.